The ship came out of hyperspace with a soft hum. Ambassador Jinho stood near the viewing window and looked at the planet below. It was a dark world. The sky was filled with red and orange clouds. Mountains rose high into the air like giant teeth. This was Vraka, the home of the Vrakan species. Jinho took a deep breath. He had been chosen for this mission because he was calm. He never panicked. He never showed fear. These were important things when meeting the Vrakan. The Vrakan were known across the galaxy as the most dangerous species. They were tall, almost 3 meters high. Their bodies were covered in dark scales. They had 4 arms, each ending in claws that could cut through metal. Their faces had large yellow eyes and mouths filled with sharp teeth. They were predators, true predators. They had conquered their world by hunting everything that moved. But now they wanted peace. They had sent a message to the Galactic Council. They wanted to join. They wanted to trade. They wanted allies. Nobody believed them at first. The Vrakan had scared every species they had ever met. Ships that went to their world never came back. But this time was different. The Vrakan had saved a human colony ship that was dying in space. They had given the humans food and water and fixed their ship. Then they had let them go. This surprised everyone. The Galactic Council decided to send someone to talk to them. They chose humans because the Vrakan seemed to like humans. Nobody knew why. Jinho was not alone on this mission. With him was his translator, Yuna. She was young but very smart. She had learned the Vrakan language in only 6 months. She was also brave. When she was told about this mission, she did not hesitate. She said yes immediately. There was also Teho, the security officer. He was a big man with strong arms and a serious face. He carried a weapon, but Jinho had told him not to use it unless absolutely necessary. Showing weapons to the Vrakan might make them angry. The last member of the team was Minji. She was a scientist who studied alien species. She wanted to learn everything about the Vrakan. She had read every report, every story, every piece of information about them. But she knew that seeing them in person would be very different. The ship began to descend through the clouds. Jinho watched as the ground came closer. He could see a city below. The buildings were made of black stone. They were tall and pointed, like spears reaching for the sky. There were no soft edges. Everything looked sharp and dangerous. This is it, Yuna said softly. She stood next to Jinho, her hands holding a small translation device. Are you ready? Jinho nodded. Ready as I will ever be. The ship landed on a large platform made of metal. Steam rose from the ground. The air outside was hot and thick. Jinho could see figures waiting for them. They were tall and dark. Vraken. The door of the ship opened slowly. Hot air rushed in. Jinho stepped forward first. He walked down the ramp with steady steps. His heart was beating fast, but his face showed nothing. He looked calm and peaceful. The Vrakan watched him come. There were 5 of them. They stood very still, like statues. Their yellow eyes followed every movement Jinho made. He could feel their gaze on his skin. One of the Vrakan stepped forward. This one was bigger than the others. Its scales were darker, almost black. Around its neck was a chain made of bones. This was High Elder Koroth, the leader of the Vrakan Council. Koroth looked down at Jinho. The human was so small compared to him, so weak, so soft. Yet this small creature had come to their world without fear. Interesting. Human, Koroth said. His voice was deep and rough, like rocks grinding together. You come to our world. You are brave or you are foolish. Yuna quickly translated. Though Jinho had understood most of it, he smiled and bowed his head slightly in respect. Great Elder, Jinho said, and Yuna translated his words into the Vrakan language. I come in peace. My people wish to know your people. We wish to be friends. Koroth made a sound. It might have been a laugh. Friends. The Vrakan do not have friends. We have prey and we have rivals. Which are you? Neither, Jinho said calmly. We are something new. The other Vrakan shifted. They seemed surprised by this answer. Koroth studied the human for a long moment. Then he turned and began to walk toward the city. "Come," he said, "we will talk. But I warn you, human, our world is dangerous. Our young are more dangerous. Stay away from the nurseries. No species has ever survived near our cubs." Jinho followed, with his team close behind. Minji was writing notes on a small device. Teho kept his hand near his weapon, his eyes watching everything. Yuna walked beside Jinho, whispering translations of what the Vrakan guards were saying to each other. "They are talking about us," she said quietly. "They think we are strange. They do not understand why we came." "They will understand soon," Jinho said. The city was even more impressive up close. The buildings were carved with images of hunts and battles. Vrakan walked through the streets, all of them large and powerful. They stopped to look at the humans with curious eyes. Some of them growled softly. Children, smaller versions of the adults, peeked out from doorways before being pulled back by their parents. Jinho noticed something interesting. The adult Vrakan were scary, yes, but they were also careful. They moved around the children gently. They protected them. They loved them. This was important information. They arrived at a large building in the center of the city. This was the council hall. Inside, it was cooler. The walls were decorated with weapons and trophies from hunts. Jinho tried not to look at them too closely. They entered a great room where more Vrakan waited. These were the council members. They sat on stone chairs arranged in a circle. In the center was a smaller chair, clearly meant for the humans. Jinho sat down. His team stood behind him. All the Vrakan eyes were on them. "So," Karath said, taking a seat, "let's talk about the future. Let us see if humans are worthy of the Vrakan." Jinho smiled. He was ready for this. He had prepared for months. He knew what to say and how to say it, but deep in his heart, he felt that this mission would not go as planned. Something was going to happen. Something unexpected. He just did not know what yet. The negotiations had been going on for 3 days. Jinho sat in the council hall every morning and talked with the Vrakan leaders. They discussed trade routes and resources. They talked about borders and territories. They argued about rules and laws. It was hard work. The Vrakan were not easy to deal with. They were proud and stubborn. They did not like to compromise. Every small point became a big debate. But slowly, very slowly, they were making progress. Yuna was tired. She had been translating for hours every day. Her voice was getting weak. But she did not complain. She knew how important this mission was. Minji spent her free time studying the Vrakan culture. She walked through the city with a Vrakan guide, learning about their history. She discovered that the Vrakan had once been even more violent. Long ago, they had fought wars among themselves. Millions had died. Then, a great leader had united them. Since then, they had lived in peace with each other. But they still saw other species as threats. Teho stayed close to the team at all times. He did not trust the Vrakan. He saw how they looked at the humans, like hungry animals looking at food. He kept his weapon ready, just in case. On the 4th day, something happened that changed everything. It was afternoon. The council was taking a break. Jinho was sitting in a small room, drinking water and resting his mind. Yuna was with him, reviewing her notes. Teho stood by the door, watching the hallway. Suddenly, there was a commotion outside. Jinho heard loud voices and the sound of running feet. Teho tensed and put his hand on his weapon. "What is happening?" Jinho asked. Before anyone could answer, the door burst open. A female Vrakan rushed in. Her eyes were wide with panic. Behind her came 2 Vrakan guards, looking equally worried. "The cubs!" the female cried out. "They have escaped from the nursery." Jinho stood up quickly. He remembered Karatha's warning. "Stay away from the nurseries. No species has ever survived near our cubs." The female Vrakan was shaking. "You must leave this room. You must hide. The cubs are young, but they are deadly. They will hunt anything that moves. They do not know the difference between prey and guests." Yuna translated quickly, though her voice was nervous. Teho pulled out his weapon. No! The female Vraken shouted, seeing the gun. If you hurt them, you will die. Every Vraken on this planet will hunt you down. Those are the children of council members. They are precious. Jinho raised his hand to calm everyone down. Put the weapon away, Teho. Sir, we need to protect ourselves, Teho argued. I said put it away. Teho hesitated, but he obeyed. He holstered the weapon, but his body remained tense, ready to fight. The female Vraken looked at Jinho with confusion. Why are you not running? Why are you not scared? Jinho smiled gently. Should I be? Before she could answer, there was a sound at the door. Everyone turned to look. 3 small shapes appeared in the doorway. They were Vraken cubs. They were about the size of human children, maybe 4 or 5 years old in human terms. But they did not look like human children at all. They had the same dark scales as the adults, but theirs were softer, not fully hardened yet. Their eyes were large and bright yellow, filled with wild energy. Their claws were small but sharp. Their mouths were open, showing rows of tiny pointed teeth. They had found the humans. The female Vraken, who Jinho now understood was their mother, made a sound of fear. Do not move. Do not make any sudden movements. Maybe they will lose interest. But the cubs did not lose interest. They saw the strange creatures in the room. Creatures they had never seen before. Creatures that were small and soft and different. Their hunting instincts woke up. The largest cub, a male with slightly darker scales, stepped forward. He lowered his body into a hunting position. His siblings followed, copying his movements. They had been practicing this. They had been learning how to be predators. The cub opened his mouth and let out a roar, but it was not a scary roar. It was small and squeaky. It sounded like a baby animal trying to be fierce. The cub did not seem to notice. He thought he was being terrifying. Teho almost laughed, but stopped himself. The mother Vraken looked horrified. This was the moment when the cubs would attack. This was when the blood would flow. But Jinho did something nobody expected. He knelt down. He got on his knees, so that he was at the same level as the cubs. He did not run. He did not fight. He did not even look scared. He just knelt there, looking at the small predators with calm, warm eyes. The cubs stopped. This was not how prey was supposed to act. Prey was supposed to run. Prey was supposed to scream. Prey was supposed to be afraid. This creature was doing none of those things. The largest cub tilted his head in confusion. He let out another roar, louder this time. He was trying to be more scary. Jinho smiled. It was a genuine smile, full of warmth and kindness. Hello there, he said softly. Yuna did not need to translate. The cubs understood the tone, even if they did not understand words. This creature was not afraid of them. This creature was not threatening them. This creature was friendly. The second cub, a female with brighter eyes, took a step closer. She sniffed the air. Humans smelled different from anything she had ever smelled before. It was not the smell of prey. It was something else. Something interesting. The third cub, the smallest one, was hiding behind his siblings. He was more shy than the others. He peeked out with curious eyes, watching the strange creature that was kneeling on the ground. The mother Vraken watched in complete shock. Her children were not attacking. They were not hunting. They were curious. This had never happened before. When cubs saw a new species, they always attacked. It was their nature. It was their instinct. But something about this human was different. Jinho slowly raised his hand. He moved very carefully, very slowly. He did not want to scare the cubs. He held his hand out, palm up, showing that he had no weapons, no claws, no threat. It is okay, he said gently. I am not going to hurt you. The largest cub growled softly, but it was not an angry growl. It was a confused growl. He did not know what to do. His instincts told him to attack, but something else told him to wait. This creature was not acting like prey. Maybe it was not prey at all. The female cub made a decision. She walked forward slowly, one step at a time. Her mother made a sound of warning, but the cub ignored her. She walked right up to Jinho and sniffed his hand. Jinho did not move. He let the cub smell him. He let her study him. He waited patiently. The cub looked up at his face. Their eyes met, yellow eyes looking into brown eyes, predator looking at human. And in that moment, something changed. The cub made a small sound. It was not a roar or a growl. It was almost like a purr, a sound of curiosity and interest. The other two cubs saw this. They saw that their sister was not attacking. They saw that she was calm. Slowly, they began to move forward too. The mother Vraken could not believe what she was seeing. Her deadly children, the fierce hunters that no species could approach, were walking up to a human like he was one of their own. What kind of creatures were these humans? Yuna and Teho watched in amazement. They had never seen anything like this. Jinho was surrounded by 3 predator cubs, and he looked completely at peace. Jinho knew something that the Vraken did not. He knew that all children, no matter the species, were just children. They wanted to play. They wanted to explore. They wanted to be loved. Even little predators with sharp teeth and claws. He just had to show them that he was not afraid. And he was not. The 3 cubs stood in front of Jinho. They were confused. They had never met anything like him before. Their mother had taught them that all other creatures were either threats or food. But this creature was neither. The largest cub, whose name was Karvok, decided to try again. He pulled back his lips to show all his teeth. They were small but sharp like little needles. He puffed up his chest to look bigger. Then he let out his best roar. It came out as a high-pitched squeak. Karvok did not know it sounded like a squeak. In his mind, it was a terrifying roar. He had practiced it many times. He had roared at rocks and trees and small animals. They had all run away. So why was this strange creature not running? Jinho looked at the cub and smiled. He had raised children before. He had nieces and nephews back on Earth. He knew what it looked like when a child was trying to act tough. That was a very good roar, he said softly. Yuna almost laughed out loud. She covered her mouth with her hand and pretended to cough. The mother Vraken looked at her with wide eyes. What did he say? The mother asked. Yuna composed herself. He said the roar was very good. The mother blinked. He is praising my son for trying to attack him? I think he finds it cute. The word did not translate well into Vraken. The mother did not understand. How could a predator cub be cute? How could an attempt to kill be praised? Karvok tried again. This time he added a growl at the end of his roar. He stomped his feet on the ground. He waved his small claws in the air. He was giving his best performance. The second cub, Nira, watched her brother with a critical eye. She thought his technique was not very good. She decided to show him how it was done. Nira stepped forward and lowered her body. She moved slowly, like a hunter approaching its prey. Her bright eyes focused on Jinho. She let out a low growl that was supposed to sound menacing. It sounded like a small engine trying to start. Jinho watched her approach with interest. Oh, that is a good hunting stance, he said. Very proper form. The mother Vraken was losing her mind. This human was treating her children like they were performing a show. Did he not understand the danger? Did he not see the claws and teeth? Teho understood the danger. He stood against the wall, his hand still close to his weapon. He was ready to act if anything went wrong. But so far, nothing had gone wrong. The cubs were not attacking. They were just showing off. Minji had appeared at the doorway. She had heard the commotion and come running. Now she stood there, recording everything on her device. This was incredible. This was history. A human interacting peacefully with Vraken cubs. Nobody would believe it. The smallest cub, Turi, was still hiding behind his siblings. He was the shy one of the group. While his brother and sister were brave and bold, Turi preferred to watch from a safe distance. But he was curious too. Very curious. He peeked out from behind Karvok and looked at the human. The human looked back at him and gave a small wave. Turi ducked back behind his brother. His heart was beating fast. The human had seen him. The human had acknowledged him. It was scary and exciting at the same time. Karvok was getting frustrated. His roars were not working. His scary faces were not working. The human just kept smiling at him. He decided to try a different approach. He walked right up to Jinho, stopping just a few inches away. He was so close that Jinho could feel his warm breath. Karvok looked up at the human's face and growled as loud as he could. The growl was more like a rumble. It vibrated in the cub's small chest. It was actually quite impressive for a young one. Jinho could tell that this cub would grow up to be a powerful Vraken. But right now he was just a child. You are very brave, Jinho said. Your parents must be proud of you. The mother Vraken stepped forward. Please, human, do not encourage him. He does not understand that you are being kind. He thinks you are challenging him. Am I? Jinho asked, still looking at Karvok. I do not feel like I am challenging anyone. I am just saying hello. To the Vraken, not running away is a challenge. Standing your ground means you think you can win a fight. Jinho nodded slowly. I see. And what happens when someone stands their ground against a cub? The mother paused. Usually the cub attacks. And then she did not finish the sentence. She did not need to. But he has not attacked me yet, Jinho pointed out. No, he has not. I do not understand why. Jinho looked at Karvok, who was still growling at him. The cub's eyes were fierce, but there was something else in them too. Confusion, interest, wonder. Maybe, Jinho said slowly, he does not want to attack. Maybe he is just doing what he thinks he is supposed to do. This idea hit the mother like a thunderbolt. She had never thought about it that way. Cubs attacked because they were trained to attack. They learned from watching adults. They practiced on each other and on small prey. It was their culture. It was their way of life. But what if they had a choice? What if they could choose not to attack? Nira moved closer too. She was done with her hunting stance. It had not worked. The human was not scared. Now she just wanted to see what this strange creature was like. She reached out with one small clawed hand and touched Jinho's arm. She felt his skin. It was soft and warm, very different from Vraken scales. Her eyes widened with surprise. Soft, she said in her baby voice. It was one of the few words she knew. Very soft. Jinho laughed. It was a warm, kind laugh. Yes, humans are soft on the outside, but we're strong on the inside. The mother translated what the human said. Nira tilted her head, thinking about his words. Strong on the inside? What did that mean? Karvok stopped growling. His sister had touched the human, and nothing bad had happened. Maybe it was safe. Maybe he could touch too. He reached out and poked Jinho's other arm. Then he quickly pulled his claw back, as if expecting the human to explode or something. When nothing happened, he poked again. And again. You are strange, Karvok said. Very strange. Yuna translated for Jinho. He smiled and nodded. I suppose I am strange to you. You are strange to me too. But strange is not bad. Strange is just different. Turi finally found his courage. He crept out from behind his siblings and approached the human slowly. His small tail was tucked between his legs. He was scared, but he was also curious. He wanted to see what all the fuss was about. He stopped in front of Jinho and looked up at him with big yellow eyes. Then, very quietly, he tried to make a roar. What came out was the smallest, cutest sound anyone had ever heard. It was like a kitten trying to meow. It was adorable. Yuna could not help herself. She giggled. The sound escaped before she could stop it. Turi's eyes went wide. Someone had laughed at his roar. His tiny roar that he had practiced so hard. His face fell. He looked like he might cry. But Jinho reached out and gently put his hand on Turi's head. It was a soft touch, barely there. He rubbed the smooth scales between the cub's small horns. Do not be sad, Jinho said gently. Your roar was wonderful. It was the best one yet. Turi looked up at him with hope in his eyes. Really? The mother translated. Jinho nodded firmly. Really? A small smile appeared on Turi's face. Nobody had ever praised his roar before. His siblings always made fun of him because his roar was so quiet. But this strange creature, this human, thought it was the best. Maybe humans were not so bad after all. The three cubs now stood in a circle around Jinho. They were not attacking. They were not hunting. They were just looking at him with curious eyes, trying to understand this strange creature who was not afraid of them. And somewhere in their young hearts, something was changing. The room was quiet now. The growling and roaring had stopped. The three cubs stood around Jinho, looking at him with curious eyes. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Everyone was waiting to see what would happen next. The mother Vraken, whose name was Shara, watched with her heart beating fast. She had never seen her children act this way. They were hunters, born to chase and catch and kill. But right now, they looked like ordinary children. Curious, interested, harmless. Jinho could feel the tension in the room. He knew that one wrong move could change everything. But he also knew that this moment was special. This was a chance to show the Vraken that humans were different, that they could be friends. He looked at Karvok, the largest cub. Karvok was still trying to look fierce. His little jaw was tight. His claws were out. But his eyes told a different story. They were filled with questions. "Can I show you something?" Jinho asked softly. Shara translated. Karvok tilted his head. "Show me what?" "A human secret. A trick that makes people happy." Karvok thought about this. He had never heard of a trick that made people happy. Vraken tricks usually involved hunting or fighting. What kind of trick could this soft creature know? "Show me," Karvok said finally. Jinho slowly raised his hand. He moved very carefully, so the cubs would not be startled. He reached toward Karvok's head, toward the spot behind his small ears where the scales were softer. Shara took a step forward. "Wait, what are you doing? You cannot touch a cub's," but it was too late. Jinho's fingers found the soft spot behind Karvok's ears, and he began to scratch. Karvok's entire body froze. His eyes went wide. His mouth fell open. A strange feeling spread through his body. It started at his head and moved down to his tail. It was warm and pleasant and unlike anything he had ever felt before. What is this?" Karvok whispered. Jinho smiled. "This is called scratching. Humans do it to show affection." Karvok did not know what affection was, but he knew that he liked this feeling. He liked it very much. A sound escaped from his throat. It was not a roar. It was not a growl. It was a deep, rumbling sound that vibrated through his whole body. It sounded almost like purring. Shara's jaw dropped. Vraken did not purr. Only baby Vraken made that sound, and they stopped making it after their first year. To hear her son, who was almost 3 years old, purring like a newborn, it was impossible. But there he was, purring. Nero watched her brother with wide eyes. She had never seen him act like this. He always tried to be tough and strong. He never showed weakness. But now he was standing there with his eyes half closed, making baby sounds. She wanted to laugh at him. But she also wanted to know what that feeling was like. "Me too," she said, stepping closer to Jinho. "Do me too." Jinho used his other hand to scratch behind Nira's ears. The same thing happened. Her body relaxed. Her eyes became soft. The purring sound started in her throat. Turi did not wait to be asked. He pushed himself between his siblings and pressed his head against Jinho's arm. His message was clear. He wanted scratches too. Jinho laughed and used both hands to scratch all 3 cubs at the same time. It was a bit awkward, but he managed. The 3 cubs stood there, eyes closed, purring like engines. Yuna watched with tears in her eyes. She had seen many amazing things in her life. She had traveled to many planets and met many species. But this was the most beautiful thing she had ever seen. 3 predator cubs, descendants of the most dangerous species in the galaxy, being tamed by a simple act of kindness. Teo let out a breath he did not know he was holding. His hand dropped from his weapon. For the first time since they had arrived on this planet, he felt like they might actually survive. Minji was recording everything. Her hands were shaking with excitement. This was going to change everything. This was going to rewrite everything people knew about the Vraken. Shara walked closer slowly. She looked at her children with wonder. They looked so peaceful, so happy. She had tried so hard to make them happy. She had given them food and shelter and training, but she had never made them look like this. How? She asked Jinho. How do you know how to do this? Jinho looked up at her while still scratching the cubs. All creatures like to be touched kindly, even predators, even hunters. Everyone wants to feel loved. Loved. Shara repeated the word. It translated strangely in Vraken. Love was not a word they used often. They had words for loyalty and honor and strength, but love was something else. Yes, loved, Jinho said. These cubs are children. They need more than just training and discipline. They need warmth. They need affection. They need to know that they are precious. Shara's eyes became wet. She did not know why. She was a Vraken warrior. She did not cry, but something about the human's words touched a part of her heart that she did not know existed. The cubs were getting sleepy. The scratching felt so good that their bodies were relaxing completely. Their purring became softer. Their eyes stayed closed longer. Karvok yawned, showing all his little teeth. He was supposed to be a fierce hunter. He was supposed to be practicing his roars and growls. But right now, all he wanted to do was sleep. He leaned against Jinho's leg. His head rested against the human's knee. He was too tired to care about being tough anymore. Nira followed her brother's example. She curled up on Jinho's other side, her tail wrapping around his ankle. She let out a small sigh of contentment. Turi was already asleep. He had fallen asleep standing up, his head pressed against Jinho's arm. Jinho gently guided him down to the floor, where he curled into a ball. Within minutes, all three cubs were asleep at Jinho's feet. Their small bodies rose and fell with peaceful breaths. Their claws were retracted. Their teeth were hidden. They looked like angels. Well, angels with scales and tails. Jinho sat very still, not wanting to wake them. He looked up at Shara with a gentle smile. They were tired, he said simply. Shara nodded slowly. She walked over to look at her sleeping children. They looked so young, so innocent. She remembered when they were born. They had been so small and helpless. When had they become little warriors? When had they stopped being babies? They have not slept this peacefully in a long time, she admitted. They have nightmares. They wake up crying. I never know how to help them. Jinho's expression softened. All children have nightmares. It is part of growing up. They need to feel safe. They need to know that someone is there to protect them. I protect them, Shara said, almost offensively. I am sure you do. But protection is not just about fighting enemies. It is also about comfort, about being soft sometimes, even when the world is hard. Shara looked at the human for a long moment. He was so small, so weak compared to her. But there was strength in his eyes that had nothing to do with muscles or claws. It was a different kind of strength. A mother's strength? No, that was not quite right. A human strength? Maybe. Yuna quietly walked over and stood beside Jinho. She looked down at the sleeping cubs and smiled. They are beautiful, she whispered. Jinho nodded. Yes, they are. Outside the room, there was movement, heavy footsteps, loud voices. Someone was coming. Shara's eyes widened with fear. The council. They have heard about the cubs escaping. They are coming. Jinho looked at the sleeping cubs at his feet. He did not move to run or hide. He just sat there, peaceful and calm. Then, let them come, he said. Let them see. Let them see what humans could do. The doors burst open with a crash. High Elder Koroth stormed into the room with 5 council guards behind him. Their eyes were wild. Their claws were out. They were ready for blood. Where are the cubs? Koroth roared. His voice echoed off the walls. Where are the humans? What has happened here? Then he stopped. He saw the scene before him, and his voice died in his throat. He saw Jinho sitting on the floor. He saw 3 cubs curled up around the human, sleeping peacefully. He saw Shara standing nearby, her eyes red and wet. For the first time in his long life, Korath did not know what to say. The guard behind him were equally shocked. They had come expecting a fight. They had come expecting to find bodies on the floor. They had come expecting the worst. Instead, they found this. A human ambassador surrounded by sleeping predator cubs. What is this? Korath finally managed to ask. Jinho looked up at the High Elder calmly. He did not stand. He did not want to wake the children. The cubs found us, he said simply. We became friends. Friends. Korath repeated the word like it was something strange. With Vraken cubs? That is impossible. Cubs attack anything that is not their parent. It is their nature. Shara stepped forward. Her voice was shaking, but she spoke anyway. He did not attack them. He did not run. He was kind to them. And they responded. Korath looked at Shara, then at the sleeping cubs, then at Jinho. His mind was trying to understand what he was seeing. It went against everything he knew, everything he believed. The Vraken were predators. The galaxy knew them as killers. Species feared them. Ships fled from them. Nobody ever tried to be friends with them. Nobody ever showed them kindness. Until now, the High Elder walked closer slowly. His heavy feet made no sound. He moved like the hunter he was. He stopped a few feet away from Jinho and looked down at the human. You are either very brave, Korath said, or very foolish. You said that when we first arrived. Jinho replied with a small smile. Korath made a sound that might have been a laugh. I did, and I still do not know which one it is. He looked at the cubs. Karvok was snoring softly, his small claws twitching in his sleep. He was probably dreaming about hunting. But even in his dream, he looked peaceful. That one is my grandson, Korath said quietly. Garvuk. He is the future of our family. He is supposed to be a great warrior someday. He will be, Jinho said, but he will be something more too. What do you mean? Jinho thought about how to explain it. He looked at the sleeping cubs and smiled. He will be strong, yes. He will be a warrior. But he will also know that strength is not just about fighting. He will know that there are other ways to be powerful, other ways to be brave. Korath frowned. What other ways? Kindness, compassion, the ability to make friends instead of enemies. These are powerful things too. They take more courage than fighting. They require more strength than killing. The High Elder was silent for a long moment. The guards behind him exchanged uncertain glances. They had never heard anyone talk to Korath like this. They expected him to be angry, to attack the human for his bold words. But Korath did not attack. He just stood there, thinking. Finally, he spoke again. His voice was different now. Softer, less like a predator, and more like a grandfather. For many years, I have wondered why other species fear us. I thought it was because we are strong, because we are deadly. I was proud of this fear. He paused and looked at Jinho. But now I wonder if we are feared because we are alone, because we have never tried to be anything other than hunters, because we have never reached out a hand in friendship. Jinho nodded slowly. Fear is a lonely thing. It keeps others away. But it also keeps us trapped in what we think we should be. Korath looked at his grandson again. Karvok shifted in his sleep and pressed closer to Jinho's leg. He was seeking warmth, seeking comfort, seeking something that the Vraken did not have a word for. Perhaps, Korath said slowly, the galaxy has underestimated which species are truly the apex predators. Yuna translated. Though Jinho had understood, he smiled and shook his head. We are not predators, he said. We are just humans. We fight when we have to, but we would rather make friends. And if your friends are in danger? Jinho's expression changed. For just a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Something ancient and primal. Something that even Korath recognized. Then we become very dangerous indeed. The High Elder felt a chill run down his spine. It was a strange feeling. He had not felt fear in many years. But looking into this human's eyes, he understood something important. Humans were not weak. They were not prey. They were something else entirely. They were a species that chose to be kind, a species that could be soft and gentle and loving. But underneath that softness was steel. Underneath that gentleness was fire. They were the most dangerous species of all, not because they had claws or teeth or venom, but because they had the power to make you love them. And once you loved them, you would fight the whole galaxy to protect them. Korath smiled. It was a rare expression on his face. It made the guards behind him nervous. I think, the High Elder said, that the negotiations are over. Jinho looked up with concern. Over? Yes. There is nothing more to discuss. Korath extended his clawed hand toward Jinho. The Vraken will join the Galactic Council. We will trade with humans. We will be allies. Jinho carefully reached up and took the clawed hand in his own. The grip was gentle, careful not to cut his soft skin. And friends? Jinho asked. Korath looked at his sleeping grandson, at the peace on the cub's face, at the warmth of the human's touch. And friends, he agreed. The next few weeks were busy. The treaty was signed. Trade routes were established. Vraken ships began to visit human worlds. Human ships began to visit Vraka. But the biggest change was in the nurseries. Jinho had taught the Vraken mothers about scratches and hugs and gentle touches. He had shown them how to comfort their children. He had taught them words like love and affection and warmth. At first, the mothers had been skeptical. These were soft things, weak things, not fit for predators. But they tried it anyway, and they saw the results. Cubs who slept through the night, cubs who laughed instead of growled, cubs who were still fierce and strong, but also happy and loved. It was a revolution, a quiet one, happening in homes and nurseries across the planet, a revolution of kindness. On the day Jinho left Vraka, a small crowd gathered to see him off. The council members were there, the guards, the mothers and their cubs. Karvok, Nira, and Turi stood at the front. They were not sleeping now. They were wide awake, watching their friend prepare to leave. Karvok stepped forward. He was still small, but he stood tall and proud. He looked at Jinho with serious eyes. Then he let out a roar. It was bigger than before, stronger. He had been practicing. But this time, the roar was not meant to scare. It was meant to honor. In Vraken culture, a roar of honor was the highest compliment. It meant respect. It meant recognition. It meant, I see you. Jinho bowed his head in return. I see you too, little hunter. Nira and Turi joined their brother. 3 small voices roaring together. It was still a little squeaky, still a little cute, but it was real. It was honest. Jinho knelt down one last time. He opened his arms, and the 3 cubs rushed forward. They hugged him with their small clawed arms, careful not to scratch. They pressed their faces against his chest. Will you come back? Turi asked in his small voice. Jinho held them close. I promise. And he did come back. Many times over the years. He watched the cubs grow up. He attended Karvok's warrior ceremony. He was there when Nira became a scientist. He celebrated when Turi was named the first Vraken ambassador to Earth. The galaxy changed because of that day, because one human knelt down and showed kindness to 3 small predators who were just pretending to be fierce. Sometimes that is all it takes. Sometimes the mightiest roars come from the smallest voices. And sometimes the greatest victories are won not with weapons, but with love.